Now call this regular workshop meeting with Jacksonville City Council to order. Council, before your places there, you have a copy of the agenda, the proposed agenda for tonight's meeting, and we have some adjustments on your motion to adopt. That we need to remove workshop item number 7 and also add a number 9. I would assume we're going to look at elementary school SROs, the addition of through a grant. Is that correct? Okay.
Move approval with changes.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. All right, the first, also we have some consent items and the minutes from the July 10th, 2018 meeting, and we'll go ahead and do a motion for those.
Make that motion.
Go ahead.
I move we approve the minutes and consent items.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, now, the first item we have is number 5 here, and this is the YMCA update, and I assume that you have, Ron, you have Mr. Sewell here today.
Mayor and council, we've, of course, had previous discussions on the YMCA, and we're at a point now where it's time for an update. And so the first thing, you've seen the chronology, the steps we've gone through so far. Since our last meeting in April, where we received an update, we have been working on terms of the lease, and of course the YMCA team has been busy getting their approval, so to speak, to be a branch YMCA and working on the plans for the building. The next thing I want to really talk about is with the lease. We will, of course, give the broad terms today, but our intention is to have the lease to the point where we'll have the complete lease for council to review and pass a resolution on the August 21st meeting. And then by state law, because of the term of the lease, we have to then advertise that the council intends to enter into this lease for 10 days. And so we expect to publish a notice in the paper maybe 25th of August. And then after the 10 days, which will be after Labor Day, we'll be free to sign the lease. The manager, if he's the signing official for the city, will be able to sign the lease. And you'll see from the YMCA schedule, they looking towards starting construction in October. So that's the time frame that we see. And at this point, we'll go in and ask the Y board members to talk about where they are and with regard to the program and that. Billy?
Mayor and council, thank y'all for tonight and the opportunity to come to the opportunity with a lease. What you may have before you is what the interior of the building will look like, and we've put more to it than you may have last seen, but just kind of going across through this, the bottom left corner will be you'll see your lobby and then offices and then conference room. And the copy and then you've got your bathrooms, which would basically be, well, I did the same thing, so. And then the exercise room and assembly of different activities would be in the bottom right, and then child watch in the top right. And then the family area, as it would be called, in the very top area. So we feel comfortable between preschool activities, if there are any to start with, and then exercise classes and senior programs, and then family areas, and then summer programs. With the schools being closed, this will certainly be an adequate opportunity to use the facility the way we've got it laid out to start with. We anticipate 60 to 75 days, knowing that it's, from my reference, in the restaurant business, you have to, work nights and keep the business running. But in this case, we don't have that, so we'll basically have plenty of time to work on it, and we think that we've got a 45 to a 60-day schedule that we should be able to make this happen. These are the different programs that you see that we have that will be in place, and I'll ask Todd Stewart, our President and CEO of New Bern, who is our partner, if you want to comment on these specific programs a little bit.
Okay, so to start with,
If you sit so the mic can pick you up. Thank you very much.
we'll start with opening the facility with group exercise classes and also trying to engage teens and families in different programs that's going on. So while moms and dads are working out, we also have child watch, so their children will be watched while they're doing those activities. We've partnered with Marine Corps Air Station New River, not Cherry Point, New River, to offer a water safety program, and working with Onslow County Schools to offer second grade water safety classes for all second graders in Onslow County. 2019, the spring of 2019 will be our first offering, and then we'll offer it to the full second grade in the 2019-2020 school year. Also have talked with the school system about possibly using some schools for summer day camp program, and also local churches, working with Reverend Churchwell to identify a church that we could offer a summer day camp program as well. Also working with Onslow County Schools to offer after-school programming at the elementary schools and before-school programming at the elementary schools. So we have some great plans underway, some great collaborations underway, and we look forward to working with the city of Jacksonville and opening our brand new branch shortly after the beginning of 2019 and get a YMCA presence. Any questions?
Good presentation.
Sounds good. I got a couple of questions, if you don't mind. As far as the capacity of the building itself, is there any restrictions on capacity?
Well, as you know, the fire code always sets restrictions.
Right, I know that, yes.
I know that the fire department and the building department have been through the building, and they have identified with the architect and with the committee
Okay.
what the capacity is. I don't know that capacity. Do y'all remember what they said?
No, because we haven't actually, we don't have all the final plans and that, but in the preliminary plans, numbers were identified, but they're like, for example, the fire will require, layouts of rooms and things like that, and we haven't seen those things, but,
According to Fountain Taylor, our architect and engineer, certainly the smaller room, the two smaller rooms, the big room, we've got the fire necessities in there. Certainly, we're trying to work through the process of not having sprinklers and trying to work with the 2-hour firewalls and the exits, so we stay within legal requirement. But the big rooms should have a requirement under 175 or under 200. So.
I just don't want that to be a surprise later down the road, if that question came up, at least making some preparations for that. The parking places in the parkings, we were looking at restriping all that?
Yes, sir. The plan that that Anthony Prinz talked with City Council about some time ago, and what we think will be at least a reasonable start for the Y, is to restripe portions of Cheney for parallel parking, and then the portion of Cheney that goes from Railroad down towards Court Street, we're going to put an angle parking on both sides. And in addition to that, I believe that the Y was going to be talking to the church about some assistance.
We've had some preliminary discussions already with Infant of Prague Church, and to share their parking space next to the Y, that grass lot. So we're in preliminary discussions with them at the
That
current time.
sounds positive, what you
Yeah,
have.
they verbally agreed. We just got to put the pencil to the paper.
As far as the roof,
The city has committed to redoing the roof. That work has not yet been accomplished because we're waiting for the architect to give us the final layout for the air conditioning system. Both the air conditioning systems will be on the roof, and therefore, until we know exactly where to put the structures, we can't move forward. But we're really, the money is in the budget, and once we have the necessary information from the architect, we will proceed to get that installed.
Our plan is to have on our last meeting with our architect August 20th, so you should have the full set of plans ready to go within 4 to 5 days after that. With all those aspects that you talked about have been identified, because we are going to have the coordination between the, 1, 2, 3, 4 units that'll be on the roof, and then, because you've got to cut the curbs and then replace the full roof, as y'all had mentioned. So we'll just work that out together, and our anticipated time is to start sometime in October and be able to swing the door sometime the first part of 19.
Yeah, as soon as we have the diagrams, we will be in a position to start preparing the specifications and getting that out for bid. We'll coordinate that with them.
Sure.
Very good.
The last time that we talked about the lease, when the Y came, they suggested a 5-year lease. Well, where we are right now is a 15-year lease with an option to extend for 15 years. I mean, there's also, an option to get out, with 60-day notice. $1 a year rent. Y responsible for all the utilities. Since we're putting the roof on first 5 years, the city would be responsible for taking care of whatever problems there might be with the roof. 6 to 10, we'll do 50-50, and then after 10, the tenant is responsible for the roof as long with the rest of the building.
And we're comfortable with that, council, because, we're going to get a new roof, and we're going to get 15 to 20-year guarantee out of the roof. So in this situation, I look at this as a triple net lease from our standpoint, so we're comfortable.
Very good.
And just as we mentioned on the date, so our hope is, if it's not too cold on a bright sunny day in early February, that we'll have a great ribbon cutting, and it'll be an outstanding day for New River YMCA and Jacksonville and Onslow County. So we look forward to that day to come. We're about halfway through our fundraising. As in any fundraising activities, the first half is easier than the last half, but that's just all the known that we understand. But we feel comfortable that we're going to surpass our $1 million goal. We're about halfway there now. And we've got good activities and plans moving to get signatures and pledges and dollars in the bank to be able to move forward with our plan of construction starting sometime in October.
Well, thank you very much for the presentation.
Well, thank y'all, and look forward to a great partnership going forward. So there's been a lot of activity this year with this, and we thank you for your support, because we know it's going to be good for everyone involved.
Very excited.
So, well, thank y'all.
Thank you.
Sounds like Glenn is in the audience when he cleared his throat. So the next group up, Mayor, is going to be the TDA for an update. So Glenn, if you and your folks will come up, please.
Everybody's got a copy.
Yeah. Good job.
Thank you.
And Mr. Warden's not going to be here, so feel free to. Good job.
Mayor and Council, good evening. I want to acknowledge to you also that we have several members of the Tourism and Development Authority with us here, and a lot of supporters of that as it was. Obviously, the Mayor Pro Tem is the chairman of the authority. Ken Hagan is on the authority, and Muriel is on the authority, and of course, Randy Thomas is on the authority. So 4 out of the 6, we're not bad at all on the situation there as it was. This evening, I want to talk to you about a few things and provide an update. We've been asked to do some specific things to you, so we're going to be talking about those first up. Among them is the budget for the authority. This is what the budget looks like when it's adopted. It's a very simple budget. It simply says this is the amount of money we anticipate to collect, and then there's an administrative fee that the city uses to pay for appropriate items there. And then, excuse me, from that distribution, what's net of that is split in 1/3 and 2/3. And previously, that area that was in pink for promotion, was 2/3, and the green area, which is for the green field of items that we wish to build, was only at 1/3. And that's now been flipped so that the promotion money is 1/3 and the related expenditures is 2/3. And toward the end of collections, we have some great news to report. First of all, we're up 8% for the fiscal year 18 over the previous fiscal year 17, which is a notable. There's about $10,000 that's still out there to be collected for that fiscal year. But other than that, we're at it. Now, that great big asterisk up there gives us a chance to tell you a little something about collections. Collections are what's the occupancy tax, not necessarily all the rooms that they sold. Because when we did the 2016 study, we found that about 30% of all of the rooms rented within the city of Jacksonville don't pay tax because they're exempt. They're exempt because they used a government authorized travel card or something like that in which we cannot tax, or a few, not a many, were 90 days in length. If you're 90 days in a facility, you do not pay occupancy tax. Now, that compares to about 12% for other markets that would be of our size, but it does compare favorably to about like 20% that Fayetteville has, or something to that effect. So that's the kind of connection. So when we look at these numbers, actually, if you were to do the backwards math and look at the total generation, the number is much higher than this number. And by the way, all but 2 of the facilities reported that they had 30% of that was exempt funding. Now, this is to show you the cyclical nature of what happens in occupancy. And our significantly experienced people around the room, the Susan Dozers and Laurette, who's lived this life, say this is not untypical of matters there, but ours has been somewhat dramatic. Now, the other thing I want to show you about this chart is that for every month of the FY18, the lighter blue there as it was, we were up over the previous year for that same month, with the exception of July, and that was only $221 difference. So, marks for that diff. This, though, shows the total collections by years. And you can see that obviously FY11, our first year, we did really great. And then you saw this decline that occurred. And then it's been now, thank goodness, going gradually back up. We did implement our strategic plans in FY14, 15, in that range as it was. But there's also some other things that were clearly at play. And we found them when we did the lodging report back in 2016, which was released in 2017, that those massive deployments that we all knew were going on here in FY11, the deployments, the people who were coming to visit their loved ones as they were being deployed, and vice versa there, they were really driving it up. And then the other one was, there's intensive competition that occurred. And there was a lot of, as our consultant indicated, cannibalism that was going on in there. Look at this as a point there. In 2000, there were about 1,100 rooms in Jacksonville within the city limits. Compare that to 2011, when we went up to 1,600 as it was. And then now, at this moment, we believe we have 2,348 rooms. There is a Holiday Inn Express that's coming online. It will have 100 rooms, where they'll be added to that list there, but it's not quite open yet. But think about it. Just in the time period between 2011 when we started to the time now, that's a 48% increase in the number of rooms that has occurred since that time. And the average for across the United States is but 25%. So we're far above that average as it was at that time. And the type of rooms that we have is certainly does not match what the national standard is. Look at the vast majority are in economy and then mid-scale. And the upper mid-scale and upscale, obviously, smaller numbers in there. But you can see where the building really took place and the stratification that took place there. And I have that 72% for interior doors there to tell you that the facilities that have those, some around this table will remember when the Special Olympics wanted to have a special project here, wanted to bring the whole regional aspect of the games for 2 states here. They couldn't do it because we did not have enough hotels that had interior halls with room doors on. And they will not allow those teams to stay in facilities that don't have those interior doors. So, And obviously, everything that gets built now has interior doors. Now, back to that lodging report. Here is also how it populated out as to what the number of people are who stay in our facilities. And you can see clearly it was 27% business and 34% military leisure, which is visitation of military people as it was there. And the conference and meeting areas are there. Now, in the first review that we had, when we interviewed those people at the front desk and we got guidance from people like that, they put it about 60-40, that 60% was somehow connected to the military. Well, you can see that some of that business travel was probably related to military, but not declared. And some of the conference probably was related to that. It didn't get quite to the 60%, but you can see that it's larger. The figure that really bothered us was that 2.6% sports. We thought we were doing a better job than that until we realized that's 13,000 room nights for a year. That's a pretty good number that equates out for that of all the rooms that were available, that 2.6% were rented out for sports. That keeps it as it was there in perspective. And of course, the Sports Commission was really the city's first economic partner. You folks are the origins of that. It was done by an action of the City Council to start the work on a Jacksonville-Onslow Sports Commission, and to do that, and it was the council acted on August 12, 1999, to form that, to create the nonprofit that it was initially populated with commissioners and city council members, and its job was to do economic development through sports, and it has been successful. They have lamented that there's a lack of facilities that have allowed them to fully realize what might be possible for our community. But this number, nearly $3 million, indicating of their economic impact for the past fiscal year, demonstrates the wisdom of this project and spending money for encouraging sport. So too does that number, 6,665 room nights, that they're able to attribute to the facility, to the activities and such that they have been involved in. So a worthy investment to be sure. Now, along with strategies, we want to talk to you a bit about how originally we looked at, in guidance with our hotel partners, hospitality partners, encouraging the extension of stay. If the military families were coming here to visit their loved ones, we wanted them to stay an extra day. We wanted to do that. We wanted to enhance the visitor experience with things they could do and places they could go and getting around our area. And then we wanted to develop sports travel because if we thought we were hitting a vein there. If we could hit it a little harder, that was clearly the best. And we wanted to tell the story of our destination, a theme that you're going to hear much, much more. When in 2013, the North Star program, we really branded the community, and our tagline was developed to receive a hero's welcome. And that was to capitalize on the fact that we want to celebrate our military and feel good about having people come here and be a part of it. This second revision now has come from this panel that we have created from the people who are sitting to my left here. This is obviously Susan Dozer. She's with DK Communications. And we have Teresa Beecham of Viamark. Many of us know that. And we also have Laurette Legan over here on the side, because she's our partner as such there. And we put a number of people in the room, and we actually went through the old plans. We spent 2 days doing this in an intensive way. We met with some of the people who were tourism promotion fund people. We met with some others that had opinions about how things were operated in other areas. And we've been able to create a new strategic plan that adds to what we've done in the past, extending the stay of those who come, benefiting, though, from outdoor activities that we can expend to them. Obviously, sports continues on the list. Meetings, festivals, and events, we're limited because we don't have enough space for some of them. So that's going to be something that we're going to be playing along with as it was. And obviously, our military connection. This is what the strategic plan looks like. It's in the iLegislate in your agenda should you wish to do it. It's 15 wonderful pages of activities and things like that we're going to be doing, and a lot of work that's going to be done by many people as it was. But some of the key components are these that are on the screen. And we're going to talk about those briefly here just for a moment as it was. Among them, that enhancing the visitor experience. The manager shared with you today that we're working on some directional signs. The final design for the garden sign is in process as it was. And the Grove sign ran into a little issues there, but we're working through them as we can make that happen too. And then in sports development, obviously, in addition to what the Sports Commission's doing, we made a contract with them to create 3 new events a year. The idea being, much after the Richmond model for the Richmond Sports Commission, they produce a number of events. Some they know are going to fail, and some they know are going to be successful. So you must allow that to occur. But the event's going to be designed in each case to at least generate 100 room nights, and if something's successful, they'll repeat it. That's the case with the New River Splash. That's going to continue this year, and they have great hopes for what it will be into the future. And of course, the continuing the work for the Multipurpose Center. In tours, that's not been an easy task at all. For the Lejeune Memorial Gardens part of the tour, we have now got a draft from the historian, and we're ready to start some of the narrative building and go from there. We are hoping to be able to use some transit buses that are being released and to help us advance some of our tour work to that end. And on reunions, this is one where it's a great success story. Laurette agreed to take on that task, and 5 reunions have already been completed, and they're going off to 3 conferences soon for recruitment. Now, that sounds like fun times and luxury travel, but this is the type of conference they'll be going to. This is your military reunion connection, and these are people who are military reunion planners. This is what they do. They may be tasked this as something they're doing otherwise, it may be that they do it professionally, but somehow they're connected to some event that they want to do that's military, and it's a reunion on the matter there. And you can see through the work of Laurette and her staff, they already got Jacksonville listed as one of the top destinations for military reunions in the United States. We knew there were some reunions taking place. Many of us have memories of some hotel that was here that almost built their entire business case off of reunions. We knew it was there, but we had to go to Columbus, Georgia to really see how they did it and then build our model after what they were doing. And this is the first reunion that was done. And one of the things that we learned from our friends down there in Columbus, Georgia, they want things that are personalized to them. They want a tour given to them of the Memorial Gardens. They want to be able to experience things themselves. Unrequited, exceptional hospitality is what they're looking for. And one thing that Lisa Mirabito and Laurette have done is to make sure they're taken care of from the moment they get here to the moment they leave. And that is part of the process that happens to that end. There is a huge hurdle, and that has been transportation. But we have worked through that. We contract with MV Transportation through the city, and we have actually paid for some of the transportation because it's not commercially available at the scale that they need and the price points to get the reunions here. So we've had to work from that. Hopefully there's a commercial answer to this sometime in the future, but we don't see it that way based on some other factors that are driving what transportation costs into our community. Now, the collaboration, cooperation is another wonderful example. We've already mentioned the Chamber for the county effort, and we share in placements, we share in work. They have certainly helped us a great deal with many projects that we're doing, and we really do appreciate that, and vice versa on that. And of course, with VisitNC. If you look in the document that we've provided to you, in your agenda, you'll see that VisitNC is in there a whole lot, because that's definitely one of the partners that we use. And Coast Host, that's for a regional effort of all the coastal communities advertised together, principally in our state and some magazines similar to that as it was. And a document that we placed at your seat is a real example of working together. And this is that we have basically a city-county visitor guide. I'm deeply informed that we still need paper products around, and so consequently, something like this it's been delivered to all the visitor centers in the state. It's there, so stop and check. And if we need to send more, we'll get that done too. But it's been a wonderful experience working on that. That was a project that Teresa led for our joint effort there as it was too. And then telling our story. This, without a doubt, is the largest part of what we do, to create that. Now, the city staff is very well equipped at telling the story of the city and the wonderful things the city does. So we extend that to tell about the wonderful reasons you should come and visit us. So we have people who are very good at doing that as part of your city staff, but we cannot do it all. And so consequently, that's why we extend our time with our consultants and our partners here to help do that in a collaborative way as it was. One of the successes that we're really proud of just occurred. when we had the spring media tour, which involved all our partners and such there. And then looking at that Montford point, here's a story of a group of people whose existence wasn't even acknowledged by the Marine Corps for several years, and whose story had not penetrated much beyond our borders as a fact of what it was that they had endured and gone. But through the efforts of Susan Dozer, we have pushed that story out. Washington Post, front page. We've had Daily Beast and Huff Post. The connections that she has are not connections we have. And so that's one of the things. And then we've also had some significant articles by key influencers who have helped us in this matter. And then we have used Viamark and Susan Dozer to get our word out and to extend the reach of what it is that we're to do. Viamark has particularly been great in helping us with our event promotion and implementation of our plan as it was. And we do have some success factors. Among them, that tourism is up. You saw the upward rise, and remember that number is probably at least 20%, if not more, higher than what that is indicating. And documented responses to our promotions. We know after something that we do, we get feedback in social media. We know that. We can document that. And then after they post something like, for instance, Lance Ledoux, who has the Bayonet Cruises, he's able to say now that he and his wife have actually had to block out times where they will not do it because they've gotten business from what we have promoted for people to come from out of town and use their cruises they do of the river as it was. And then that other number. We now know that attributable to the TDA spending, 14,500 rooms, we can trace back to what we are spending with the TDA as it was. This is that implementation document that's also in your folder. Gives it month by month what it is that we have to get done and the things that will be coming out. You can look on there and see when our placements are going to be in our state and things such as that. This is something they mentioned we've got to have the help to do it, and among those that we do are our partners here. Now, I'm going to introduce to you now Susan Dozer to talk to you briefly about some of the items that have been placed out in the matter there. Susan is a practiced professional in tourism promotion. Now, the credit for us having Susan Dozer here goes solely to Laurette Legan, because she connected us together at the Governor's Tourism Conference and got us put together with this. That's been a wonderful activity. Susan has worked for the state of North Carolina with VisitNC. She has been a writer for Southern Living. She has experiences particularly promoting small areas as well as some large areas. Her niche most recently has been with some of the craft beer and wine functions and such like that as it was, but she's also done many other things, restaurants, for instance, and things such as that help tell the story of them. So it's with great pride that we bring Susan Dozer to tell you a little bit about how it is that we've been advancing your story.
I better be really good after that. Okay. One of the things when I transitioned from magazine writing into actually being on the business side and telling PR is when you're in business, you got to make the bottom line, you got to be able to measure, right? And so it was kind of a wake-up call for me. And one of the things that I learned is, as a writer, you knew a lot of things because you were covering kind of a certain beat all the time. Well, back in the old days before everything changed. But anyway, and so one of the things I realized was that, first of all, your key thing when you're promoting tourism is someone has to know that you exist. And one of the things that I found as I told my colleagues, I'm headed down to Jacksonville, and they'd always say, Florida? And so, first of all, there are so many people, even right here in North Carolina, that don't know that there's a Jacksonville in North Carolina. And then I would be very proud. This is my first military-related account, and I got to go on to Camp Lejeune. And they kind of look at you, and they're like, military, but they don't actually know it's a U.S. Marine Corps base, and they don't know our amazing story about how here is where we planned the amphibious assaults that won World War II. duh. And so anyway, so these are the kinds of things that I realize as we start to put together this, you're nodding, if people don't know what you are and that you're here, that's one hurdle. And so awareness building is a really big deal. And we're doing that with some of the kinds of stories we're telling in the media, with our social media and our website. We'll talk about that more. But I just wanted to say, so awareness is the one thing. And then once there is a Jacksonville, then there's the so what. And the so what is, well, we have this fabulous military story, there's the memorials, and you start layering, here's the reason that you come. So with that said, I'll jump in and we'll tell you just a little bit more about what we're doing. Okay, talking about telling those stories. I was so excited when I learned about our Montford Point Marine story. It is a wonderful national story of about the 20,000 men who served. We only know of about 1,000 of them that have been actually recognized and received that medal. And so there's an incredible opportunity as we identify those people for their families to come here, for there to be more national press and that kind of thing. So that was a no-brainer straight out of the gate. And that's why we've gotten that Washington Post and Huffington Post coverage. In the outdoors, bayonet cruises, Glenn's already mentioned some of these things. And our military heroes also play a great storyline in terms of people like Mr. Lazera own businesses, bayonet cruises owns businesses, those kinds of things. So we're going to talk about how that you can have an experience related to these military heroes. And that's where the Receive a Hero's Welcome ties in, which I think is a strong, strong tagline for us. A few things that we're working on coming up. We've got that 35th anniversary of the Beirut bombing. One thing with that, and this is just something that I think it's important for us to know, if you're over 40, this is an important thing for us to know. In that millennial travel group, like 25 to 35, y'all, they were babies or not born when the Beirut bombing happened. So even for them to understand, and if you ask them what the opening salvo of the war on terrorism is, first, if they know a salvo, yay, good vocabulary building, but then it's like they think 9/11, right? So there's some generational gaps in our storytelling too. But also, with Sturgeon City and some things like that. One thing that's really interesting as we do this military thing, we partnered with Visit North Carolina, and we did, every place has a 4th of July, but what's so much fun about working with you guys is that when do you get to go to a military base and celebrate alongside the people who serve our country for 4th of July? 28,000 people did that here this year. So we've got some really unique kinds of things too. Viamark has been so critical as we have looked at developing our website. And just buckle those seatbelts because our website is going to get bigger and bigger and better and better. But it'll eventually become our nerve center because that's one of the first places you tell your story. Teresa is working very hard with her team to actually get our website optimized, which means that we tell those little Google crawlers, this is where you find your information about Jacksonville. And then one of the key things as we grow our numbers and we grow our traffic is we want for people to actually come to our site and then go to a hotel and make that reservation. So referring that traffic to our partners, putting money in the bank. That's the part that the journalists don't ever talk about, but they were very tuned into. We also talked about, we know that the military, from all of our research, military is so important in our story, but the number one reason people come to visit North Carolina is to still visit family and friends. So that also has a military component. But then kind of the number 2 reason that North Carolina has the brand it does is our beautiful outdoors and our outdoor adventure, which either is mountains, Piedmont, or coast. And here that means water. And we have got incredible water activities both on the river and then just a hop away with options like Hammocks Beach State Park. We've talked a little bit, if you think about it, I always needed something simple, and I envision tourism is like a 3-legged stool. We've got our military's one leg, our events are the second leg, and then outdoors and water is the third leg. That's a pretty darn good stool, in my opinion. And working with some of those events and really, really targeting those events to the right people. For instance, when we have Mind, Body, Soul, we're targeting to people who are interested in those empowerment and business themes. When we're targeting the runs on the bases, the Grand Prix series, we're targeting to people who want and already have those interests, so we know we're reaching the right people. One of the things in North Carolina that has been amazingly successful in terms of landing media and attracting visitors is our story of food. People are excited to try barbecue. They want to taste cheer wine for the first time if they, grew up outside the South especially. They want to try all of our great things. And even here, we have an incredible culinary heritage. We were able to land Jeff's Burgers, Dogs, and Shakes in Southern Living as a great little undiscovered gem. We've got people who have been in other cultures like Marrakesh. We've got a fabulous Colombian restaurant here. There are these kinds of things that come together and make a pretty good little stew here, plus distilleries and things like that. So there's lots of things to talk about. Again, going back to those events like Oktoberfest, like the St. Patty's race, those kinds of things. And I have to just say, when you have a former Marine and you can hop on his yacht and take a cruise with him and he tells you the history of New River in that area, everybody's like, Captain, they think that's pretty cool. So what we're going to do, this slide really is to just say, I'm going to keep telling, this crowd is going to keep telling the stories that work for us, and we're going to go deeper into emotion. We're going to add the thrill of the sports. We're going to really talk about those family connections and those things that make people care. And we'll do that inside the brand. Now, just to give you a quick overview of some of the things, the partnerships that Glenn was talking about. You may say, why in the world would you all get VisitNC to bring photographers here when we have amazing photographers? You all have resources with photography and video. I have never had a client like this. It's amazing. But the reason why we partnered with Visit North Carolina on this is because if they have a picture that they help take and they're invested in taking, and it goes into their media room, it gets pushed out to media all over the country, and it gets used on their website. And so once we get on Visit North Carolina's radar, the volume just goes way, way up. And so you can see, here are a few of the shots that they took. We're emphasizing biking and fishing. Remember that outdoor stool, that kind of thing? And our military heritage. Again, a different approach to shooting the gardens here than we had had. We're also working with telling our story inside North Carolina. Quick sidebar, I had a conversation one time with one of the top vice presidents, he's still there at the Biltmore Estate, one of the most visited places in North Carolina. And he said that if they did not market to the 50-mile radius around them, they would go out of business. Because those are the people who bring their family and friends, or who, they get the visit from Aunt Gertrude because they're close to the Biltmore. And so our close people, our people in North Carolina, our people on the coast, are also people that we've got to market to. We did that with UNC TV. Deborah Holt-Noel was here to do a segment on the Hart Gallery and the Arts Council. Did you see it? It just aired 2 weeks ago. Oh, that's right. I knew I recognized you somewhere. You were in a T-shirt in that segment. Okay, you're all spiffed up today. So anyway, so she was here. I found out Deborah was coming. I said, Deborah, you got to come and hear our Montford Point Marine story. She did a fabulous piece with Houston Chanel. If you haven't seen this, it's on YouTube. Quick Google it. You'll go right to it. More than 300 Facebook shares. That was, gosh, a few weeks ago. It's probably way up now. But anyway, great storytelling about that Montford Point heritage. And then they talked about the memorials too. So, it's tied to something that people can come and experience regardless of whether they know Houston or not. And then we got her to come back, and we're hoping, we worked with Lorette and her team. We got her to come back. She got a little bit more beach time, and so we're hoping there might be another story in that pipeline too. Then if we just were to look at one segment of storytelling, social media, everybody's on their phones and all that kind of thing, but one of the biggest social media feeds, even among some tourism destinations, is the Visit North Carolina one. Just for one of their feeds, Twitter has 64,000 followers. So when we bought into their social network plan, we were able to ask one of their social media folks to come here and shoot, and then they shared our stories, beautifully done, with a lot more information and a lot more passion because they'd actually experienced it. So that was a really important opportunity to have us, again, being showcased and our story amplified by the state. When you think about amplifying stories, you gotta get in the weeds these days, because if your story is just hung out there for everybody, nobody's really going to care about it. So we knew we had the military thing. So we had a military spouse. I didn't know what a mil spouse was until I hung out with you guys. So, she has a lot of people who are married to people in the military that follow her blog, thousands and thousands. In fact, one of the first blog posts she wrote for us reached about 300,000 people. So we said, Joe, come back and let's get you to actually spend that extra day, like we keep talking about, and head to the beach. And she went to Hammocks Beach State Park in Swansboro. Well, she actually, when her blog post went up, not only did she mention 5 businesses and all the people you see here, but then we had the opportunity, and this promotion is going on Facebook right now, to actually target her blog with a Facebook post to people all up and down the Eastern Seaboard who have a military interest from DC to Charleston, South Carolina. So, getting specific and finding our right visitor. As we talked about, we're really that site. We're new information, new blogs. This one happens to be on fishing. We've done some on the Montfort Point Marines. We have amazing biking trails here. I mean, I was here for like 3 or 4 times, and I'm like, holy cow, we've got these amazing biking trails. There's so much to talk about. We're also doing some strategic advertising. The ad you see on the left is with Our State Magazine. That's a partnership we're doing with the county, and that will be running in October. And a little nod to the Beirut background there. Our state's average age is not that millennial, so that works there. We're in Heroes Play, again, talking about getting to that specific person. This is Sports Destinations magazine. Everybody who reads this magazine books sporting events. And so getting our sports play, the canoe, the kayak, the running of the marathons, they want to come here and they want to be with us. So that's what we're doing, and we're going to keep doing it, and we're just super, super grateful to have the opportunity to do it with you.
Okay. Well, we're going to go over some of the, real fast, the items that are on the strategic program. One, build awareness that we're a destination as well as a military destination. So as she said, we got to tell our story, got to tell them that where we are on the map too. And placement of stories in key markets as well as our own channels, because we're going to we have to play locally because, they're coming to visit the local people. I mean, those are there. And invite visitors to events. We want to encourage quality events so when they come here, they don't want to run out of the county going, I'm not going back there. And host reunions. And this is a big part with that unmatched hospitality. So we get a reputation. One of the things Columbus, Georgia told us about, they keep records, they keep the names, they send out notices. They have a phenomenal return rate of people who have visited as part of a reunion, then they come back. Why would we not want to capitalize on those people and do things that affect? Of course, they have a nice staff that takes care of the databases and things like that, but it is wonderful what they do. And target value-minded families, families that want to receive a hero's welcome, that want to be around military and want to do things such as that as it was too. We do want to mention about that green money that's there, that the authority gets to spend as a way that they want to. Obviously, still on the tables, the multi-purpose facility. Notice that it from day one has always been, thought of as something that will provide for sports, but it will also provide for events as it is too. And then the other part is that we have to do something to help promote some of the new spaces that are around. We've got to do something to expand greater opportunity for bookings at these facilities. Miguel gets some reunions at his place. Some go to some other places because they have a need. There's a lot to go around in different places as it is there as it was. And that, my friends, hopefully is a quick overview of that, of what we do for tourism here in Jacksonville.
Very good, thank you. Thank you for the presentation.
It makes me want to go to Jacksonville.
Good. That's what we need to do.
The real
Everybody.
Jacksonville.
If I can just add a note, I think it's important to note that ever since we started this TDA, obviously you've seen the great deal of work that's gone behind the scenes over the years past. And we've been able to do that without staff members, without a paid staff, without a paid person. Our staff has done a tremendous job, not just Glenn, but his whole team, in executing the wishes of the council, and we're very passionate about it. And the collaborative teamwork between the Chamber of Commerce, Lorette Ligon and county tourism and Susan and her team and Teresa. I mean, we've been able to have some significant accomplishments. So I think that we can feel proud about what we've been able to accomplish. And it's not just everything is accounted for, all the T's are crossed and I's are dotted for that purpose. And the impact that we've had in our community, I think, is significant. So, Lorette, would you like to add a comment?
Keep it short because Susan gets so excited when she talks about everything. So. But a couple of things that I did want to mention. Number one, and I left this with you, I left you a remembrance coin. And looking out for my business people like I do, those coins are given to every person that comes here for a military reunion, and they get a list of area retail and restaurants. They present that coin, they get a discount. So that's just another way, another layer, and I know Ken is always passionate about the way that we can generate more businesses for our local businesses through our tourism efforts. And the only other thing I'm going to add, we've been doing this together probably seriously about 3 years, and we've all found our niche. We all have talents at different things, and we call on each other, and so that's why the partnership and collaboration is working so well. I can't do what Susan does, Susan can't do what I do, and so it's just a wonderful partnership, and we're going to keep it going.
And then the last piece is the accountability. We do take a great deal of time to make sure that we're analyzing how we're spending the money and ensure that we're getting the results that we expect, and we're constantly looking at that and holding ourselves to a higher standard to make sure that we're constantly looking at other opportunities and staying current. I believe in this field of work, which is not my expertise, but you have to stay current in order to be effective. So
I'm just going to say, right, just to address that, Teresa's doing some really cool digital marketing. You'll hear words like geofencing and stuff like that. We're not going to go into that here, but really cutting edge targeted stuff. Even with our Facebook boosting, we're using some cutting edge things. And Lord, I pay a fee to be in a group that's literally like on the cutting edge of media relations. So thank you for saying that.
and Randy, if you have any comments.
I've just joined, so it's been a learning experience for me, but it seems like a lot of effective activities are going on now. You can see the results.
I gotta say one thing too.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm especially proud of what's been happening with the Bowman Point Marines. My dad was kind of a few years under that, but those guys started forward. I call them my founding fathers because I grew up in that neighborhood where most of them a lot of them started out there. They didn't end up there, but it's a thing of pride for me. And they're
For every American.
It is.
For every American.
I did want to comment on the brochure. I really like that. Somebody, I don't know who put it together, but they did a great job on it.
Group
Yeah.
effort.
It's very nice. It's a very nice
People had input in
material.
that document.
Yes.
Yes, it is. Well, thank you very much for the presentation this evening.
Yeah, it is great.
Very well done. Mayor and Council, we have two other items that we would like to cover. The question is, would you like to take a break for a few minutes, and then we'll come back? Let's take a break.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Come back.
Okay, we'll be back in session now.
See if Glenn can set up the next slide.
There you go.
Okay. Each year, the North Carolina League of Municipalities ask for input into the legislative goals and the priorities they should have for the coming session. In September, we will have the state conference, and then later in the year, we will have the final goal-setting program with the North Carolina League of Municipalities staff and other municipalities. We asked the city staff to give us some thoughts about what some of the goals might be. And we shared these with you in our memo that came out to you last week. We'd like to review these with you very quickly and then also ask if there are others or any of these that you'd like to strike or anything that you'd like to add to it. If you look at the top, the utility relocate and the DOT right away, what is that all about? Earlier this week, the mayor hosted a meeting with Representative Shepherd. Representative Cleveland was unfortunately not able to be there due to a conflict. Senator Brown, and then also Mr. Alford, who is our representative on the Transportation Board. We talked with them about the state law that requires cities to relocate the utilities, but utility districts not to bear that cost. So what did I just say? Let me give you an example. We all know that 258-53 and the bypass, that project is going to create a large overpass and eliminate the streetlight system there. In that area, the city and Onwassa have water and sewer lines. Under the current law, the city will be required to pay 100% of the cost of relocating those lines. It's about $3 million. Interestingly enough, the state law exempts water and sewer districts and says that the DOT will cover their full cost. Now, this isn't an issue of Onwassa versus the city. We have great relationships, probably the best relationships we've had with Onwassa in a long time, and that's due, I think, to our two leaders on there as well as the new management there. But the point being, if you're going to do something for one organization and say the DOT is going to cover their costs, shouldn't you be doing that for all? So that was one of the purposes of the meeting earlier this week, and the state legislative delegation agreed that they would look into it. So that's one of our priorities. But also, if you think about it, it impacts every municipality in the state. That utility districts, the DOT pays for the relocate, but in cities, we have to pay. The second is transportation, the STI list, making sure that it stays static. Once that list is produced, there is too much flexibility still in the system. And what we're asking there is that when that list gets, if you pardon the expression, blessed, then you can count on a project staying in that list. From the time it gets on the list to reality is 7 to 10 years. The problem is that this program currently lasts only about 5 years, and sometimes it's reprioritized. So we're asking for better stability in that program. The next thing is move vehicle tax to highway construction fund. The motor vehicle tax, the vehicle tax that is collected, it was started out relative to vehicles and highways. Today, the vast majority of that money goes to the general fund of the state. So we're asking them to go back to the old days when highway construction funds had that as a revenue source. Of course, we're talking about state level actions here, not city actions. The next one, though, is a city action. Allow cities to levy tax for roads. During our budget this past year, we stressed with you and discussed the fact that the city has 155 miles of local roads that we're responsible for. No, we are not responsible for Gum Branch. We're not responsible for Henderson. We're not responsible for Hargett. We're not responsible for Onslow Drive. But we're responsible for every street in the residential neighborhoods. We're very blessed that we have Powell bill funding. But we're only able to resurface 3.5 miles per year. We talked about the ability to set up a quarter-cent sales tax with all of that proceeds going to road paving. Having it set up as a referendum and also having it sunset after 5 years. Well, guess what? As we've done a little bit more research, there was actually a bill introduced this year in the state legislature. It did not get approved, that had 3 other communities asking for the same thing. So one of our goals, knowing that every city in the state faces the same challenge of not enough money to pave the local roads, we hope that we can get everyone on board to encourage the legislative delegation to allow a quarter-cent, a referendum held locally, where the cities could have that referendum, and if approved by their voters, that money would go to road paving. The actual details of what that would look like, obviously, would have to be worked out. Ours was quarter-cent, referendum, 5 years, it sunsets, all proceeds going to paving. The next one is one that the police department has been working on, and that's clarification on involuntary commitments, the IVCs. Currently, there are procedures that the state law requires us to do. Sometimes those procedures make it difficult for an IVC. So we're asking for the state legislature to clarify and streamline the ability to use IVCs when you're dealing with mental health issues and substance abuse issues. And by the way, the chief would be with us this evening, but unfortunately we had a scheduling conflict where the mental health task force, which Mr. Lazara and Mr. Thomas have been very faithful to sit on, they're meeting this evening with the potential provider of the mental health services. And because that group was coming into town from, I believe, California, they were not able to reschedule. So that's why the chief is not here to present this. Another key issue is to continue to work on mental health and substance abuse statewide. And then the school safety SRO. We're going to be discussing this in a few minutes, so I won't spend any time on that one. The other thing, certification of firefighters from exiting military. We've been very successful to work on reducing the number of hours and the number of courses when a person is exiting the military and joining the police force. We still have challenges, though, relative to people exiting the military who have fought or have worked as firefighters in the military, having any of that credited towards their certification as meeting our state standards. So that's another area as part of the effort which you as the council have authorized us to work on. That's the NC for me, North Carolina for military employment. And then, of course, restructuring the 911 state board. I'm sure this is one that you have not followed very, very closely, but the board is currently set up predominantly of the vendors being the people who sell the products to the 911 centers. We need to seriously look at restructuring that so that it is made up more of the service agencies and less of the product vendors. Now, those are just some of the items that we came up with. Are there any there that you are not in favor of us forwarding on to the league staff?
I do have a question about the levy tax for roads. I mean, what type of tax? I mean, all we can do is tax property, right? I mean,
No, remember, this is the sales tax issue.
this is the sales tax?
Yes, where what we would be, you remember what we had asked our delegation
Right, was for
on your
referendum.
request was for a quarter cent, where every, pardon the pun, every penny collected would go to pave roads. It would require a referendum. It would not be a gas tax. It would not be a property tax. It would be a sales tax. And so that's the concept here is ask for legislation that would give each city council the authority to call for a referendum, not the county commission, but the city councils could then call for a referendum, and if the voter approved the referendum, it would be for paving roads
So it
only.
wouldn't be a straight authority to levy.
No,
It would be a referendum,
Always referendum.
Right.
yeah.
always a referendum.
And the vehicle tax above that you're talking about, I'm assuming, is the sales tax of the purchase of the vehicle. Is that
That's my
right?
understanding,
The vehicle
Yes.
tax, okay.
yes. But again,
But that's-
while it's called a vehicle tax, it's not
goes-
going to highway fund. John, can you clarify that?
No, I can't, but not that, but I will say that at my conference, one of the things that was discussed, the gas tax. It used to be that the Powell bill funds came from the gas tax, whatever it was, up, down, or whatever. That was done away with, and there is a steady source now, and there was praise for that steady source, not wanting to go back to the, getting exactly what the gas tax either raised or did not raise. And so that was brought up at our conference, I just mentioned that. I'm not sure exactly if that's the tax on a new motor vehicle or what, Ron?
No, I think it's the rental tax that's collected.
That's cool.
Right now, the tax on rental vehicles is not put into that. A lot of it goes to the general fund. And that's one of the issues. As a result of that not occurring, the legislature cut some of the transportation funding out of DOT, so we lost some transit funding and things like that. They want that rental tax revenue to go into the.
And that's all that tax is for the rentals? I'm
Let us
confused.
verify, let us clarify that issue. Going back though to John's comment, while the total pool available for Powell bill has now been stabilized, that doesn't give us stability with what we get. Why is that? Because the formula for distributing the Powell bill is based upon how many miles of local roads you have and what's your population. So if we don't grow and our population stays at whatever, 84,000, and our road mile stays at 155 miles, but Charlotte, Raleigh, Greensboro, any city you want to mention, gets another 5 miles, another 50 miles, they get another 50,000 people, guess what? We just lost money. So they have stabilized the pool, but they have not stabilized what we get. Now, fortunately, it just so far has had minor fluctuations. Next question then would be, are there any items we don't have on here? This is not time sensitive because we have several more weeks to submit this. Yes, sir.
The only question I have, these are all great. Are there any regulatory legislative items that need to be addressed from the regulatory side, meaning, I guess, from Public Works or that
Because
side
they
of it?
addressed the system development fees and have standardized that, from a water and sewer standpoint, the
Okay.
only one that we were able to identify was the utility relocates.
It looks great.
Now, from a building standpoint, I can give you a long list of things I'd love to see them do, but I don't think they're going to do. But if there anything you think of tonight or in the next couple of weeks, by mid-September, well, actually just before the conference, which is mid-September, we would like to have this in a form for the mayor to send out to the league. He will send it to the president of the North Carolina League of Municipalities.
That should be a short trip.
Almost a has-been.
Any other thoughts on this for the moment? Okay, thank you very much. The next item is not actually on your agenda. It was added this evening. And let me just cover this very quickly for the chief. The General Assembly, working with the state superintendent, has launched a new school safety grant program. Additional funding for North Carolina public elementary schools is now available to employ school resource officers. Onslow County has applied for the grant. And what we've been told, that grant's going to be issued. Now, that's a little odd on how these grants work. The city isn't applying for the grant. The school system's applying for the grant. So why are we discussing it? Because the grant only covers the cost of the police officer, school resource officer, for the 9 months that they're in school. Now, we have 6 elementary schools. I'm not sure how many there are out in the county, but there are at least 6. The school board grant is for 6 resource officers. 2 will be assigned inside the city. 4 will be assigned to the county. Now, what does assigned mean? It means that the city will now be asked to hire 2 police officers to become school resource officers. And the sheriff's department will be asked to hire 4. So these are not school employees, these are not school safety guards, but this is the way the program has always worked. We have currently a number of school resource officers, 1 in every high school, middle school. We have none in the elementary schools. As you can appreciate, in the climate that we unfortunately live in, having no resource officers in elementary schools leaves us with a coverage void. 2 does not cover 6. What will happen, according to Mike, the chief, they will rotate schedules and they will spend some time in each school. The other thing that exacerbates this problem a little bit is the fact we now have 2 elementary schools that are on year-round schools. So what we're asking tonight, because the rule that y'all have directed to us is this: you don't apply for a grant that's going to cost the city money without city council approval. Well, in this case, we're not the applicant, but the grant is going to be given, and it's going to have a financial impact on us. And I know that you are like I am. Protecting our children has to be a high priority. We estimate that this year in FY19 that we can absorb the cost for 2 reasons. Number 1, we're talking about 2 officers. Number 2, these people would not be hired, or these additional officers would not be hired until the spring, because that's when the grant will make the money available. So we will basically have 6 weeks of exposure covering the non-school year. After that, on a recurring basis for the summer program, because we obviously have to keep these personnel on, you can't hire somebody for 9 months and then tell them they have 10 weeks off or something. We estimate that cost is going to be roughly 1/3 of the officer's salary per year. So we're looking at somewhere $30,000 to $50,000 budget that we would have to budget in the years ahead. You're really in an awkward position here in that everybody wants to add protection. It's not a grant that you're applying for, but it has consequences to you. And for those reasons, I would hope that you would give us the nod. I actually don't know what would happen if we said no. Because the grant, it's...
I kind of got an idea what
They could put it out in the county. They could put it out in the county, right? I mean,
It's just an odd situation, because once again, school resource officers are valuable. It has worked well for us over the years, and unfortunately...
So what's the term of the grant? In perpetuity, or, I mean, is it forever, or?
It is, from what we understand, is that the money will be given to the school board every year to cover their portion, but no money will be given to the cities or to the county to cover the portions that are not covered by the grant.
Don't sound right.
That doesn't sound right. Say that again.
Okay, wait.
Say that one more time.
I'm going to answer it this way. You ask, is it a grant in perpetuity?
Right.
Our understanding is it's there as long as the General Assembly funds it. So if the General Assembly funds it forever, yes, it's perpetuity. If the General Assembly doesn't fund it, let's say 3 years from now, then our choice would be to figure out how locally we're going to pay for it, or are we going to eliminate those resource officers? But it's really no different than the SRO program that we currently have. State has been funding that for, Mayor, you were probably there when we started.
25 years, yeah.
Yeah.
But the school board gets the money, but doesn't distribute it back out. They just put it in their general fund.
They get the money, they pay the city for the 9 months, because these are city employees.
Okay.
We have an agreement with.
And that's
So
all
our
there
will they do
SROs.
that with this new?
yes,
Okay,
absolutely.
So it'd be the same.
This is just an expansion of what we've
I
been
got
doing.
you.
It's just you got that little donut hole there. There's, that summer.
Don't know we have much of a choice.
So in terms of providing protection for the elementary schools, we roll the dice and say, well, 2 schools out of 6.
Well,
Who makes that decision?
No, they'll rotate.
Well, as you're both saying the same thing. You're not giving 100% coverage to 6 schools. What Mike is going to have to do is rotate them between the schools. Now, what I think will happen is this. Next year, they're probably going to add additional money to it, and you'll be asked to have, or you'll be able to get 2 more. And maybe a year after that, you'll get 2 more. The goal, I know at the state level, is to have every elementary school provided with an SRO. So this is a rolling start, but one of the fallacies of the program is that on Monday, you're going to have 2 schools with SROs and 4 with not. But hopefully, through the process, over a period of years, we will have 1 in every elementary school.
Well, it's not like you're wasting money either, because you've got those extra additional officers during probably your peak season, which is the summertime when the school's out. So it's really kind of not really a
Cover
lose
vacations and
situation. I mean,
But
it's not
then you
like,
have 2 year-round schools.
right. But you have how many SROs in the city now?
Let's see, we have 1 for every high school, and we have, 2 or 3 middle schools.
Okay.
I think the elementary schools, the 2 are the only year-round schools. So there is a finance issue, I think, here as to how that works. And again, from scheduling, it will, as you allude to, Mayor, it won't mean they get 3 months in the summer to work for whatever. There really is going to be a scheduling challenge to deal with those 2 officers and 6 schools in the city. So again, trying to cover, so you're going to have that. But again, school resource officers, as we know, offer a lot of different services, and they're just great role models for those kids. And, formative years, the DARE program, as you're familiar with, is all help. But, their presence in the school, even on a rotating basis, it can't be anything but a positive.
Yeah, and there's 4 going to the sheriff's department, right? And they're
Correct.
covering schools that are outside the city limits.
And they're going to have to do the same thing we're doing, and that's
So we're not doing
rotating
any
time.
coverage outside the city anymore?
No.
Okay.
So what do you need? Do you need a nod or a vote or?
Well, your policy says that if we're involved in a grant, it's going to cost you money, we all have to give approval to it.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
We'd like to end this evening on the one city moment. And I'm not sure where you were yesterday as far as where you were among the 10,000 people that were at the park. But we have a whole series of pictures. You know, the event started at 5 o'clock. There was a little thunder and lightning, and some people were concerned.
There she is.
But by 6 o'clock, the place was absolutely packed.
If you didn't know, that was Alan Covey's son.
His son did a fantastic job.
Did a really good job.
That was Alan's son singing? How about that? He did a good job. He sure did.
And the grass
Women
was
in
perfect. Green as can be, it looked beautiful. I'm sorry I didn't
We
get
had a
to,
number of city booths out there, everything from the one city booth to,
sorry I didn't get to enjoy the burgers and hot dogs.
great representation of who we are and all of the various law enforcement agencies. As you know, we had the annual bicycle giveaway with helmets, also backpacks. The water department produced 1,000 bottles with city water on it, and they gave those away by 6:15, all 1,000.
How many bicycles we give away last night?
I believe it was 75, don't hold me to that number, but it was a lot. We're very fortunate that the Catalyst Church is now part of this, and they create the large children's playground that's down at the far end near the waterfront. You can see some of the things they're doing there at the Catalyst. There was food available for volunteers, including a lot of the various departments that were there. Had sanitation. You know, this event has moved from being a police event to a citywide event. Every department in the city is involved.
That baby.
Who was that?
Who is that?
Well, the woman there is Glenn's wife.
Would you buy a hamburger from that guy?
No.
I'm trying to give him an application. He wouldn't accept.
I think you can agree that this accomplishes what our goal of National Night Out truly is, and that's getting the community and the government together.
Very good.
Well done.
How did we do with the running with law enforcement for
Had
special?
about 400 out. The rumor is that Mr. Massey made it through the 8K in a record time of 35 minutes.
2 days.
I walked it, but I went there.
I didn't know you could walk.
How much money did they raise?
Well, probably about $1,000 because the entry fee was 20 per person, $20 per person. But again, great event, and we're just really pleased that that has become one that y'all sponsor as a council, where everything is free other than food you may want to buy. Of course, the next major event coming up, which will be here before you know it, will be Winterfest. So
Maybe October.
look forward. Well, it's Oktoberfest, but that's not the
Okay,
city
yeah.
sponsored event.
We want to make sure we put out more information on that this year. Try to step that up a little bit.
Well, we're thinking about setting up a sledding challenge where we have a team of the council versus a team of the county commission.
I'm ready.
Can sled down the
I'm ready.
hill.
Call that uncool runnings.
I think it ought to be ice hockey myself.
Mayor and council, that concludes the items we have. Any other items you'd like for us to cover?
Anybody?
No, I just, if I can, I know that it's beating a dead horse, but, you know, when you look at stuff like this and you look at the kind of staff that you have, departments that you have, you can only be proud of the city that we are. I mean, you looked at TDA today, you look at all the events and everything they do to keep our city looking pretty and beautiful and correct. And I mean, that's a lot to be proud of. I mean, and they deserve to be recognized because they truly do care. And you can
Great job.
tell.
Very good.
So,
Very good. Excellent. All right, with
We'll
that,
pass those comments on.
please do. I liked your comments to the employees last night too. You sent the email out. That's just very, very good, very good. With that, I'd
Move we
entertain a
adjourn.
motion.
thank you.
Second.
Do it.